Hello. Today it's our last meeting, learning together Midrashim from Dirshuni, contemporary women's Midrash. And we will read together 3 Midrashim written by 3 different women in the last decade. And these Midrashim has to do with closure and with new openings. So each of them has some painful side in them, but also great strength and hope and belief. And I hope it will help all of us. The first Midrash, the 3 of them appear in Dirshuni already, in the first volume of Dirshuni, if you would like to see them again. The first Midrash is written by Rivka Lubitch, that we read some pieces of hers in the last sessions. And it has to do with leverate, which really has to do with ending of life of man and having a new baby, having the name after the father that died. And this midrash is is made in a traditional way that is a little different from the regular midrashim that play with verses and play with different words and all the vehicles that we know from the rabbis. This one is named, it's a sub-genre in a midrash that tells the stories of great heroes, Masei Chachamim, that we have to learn from the rabbis or big people how to behave. So this midrash tells the story of Jamila from Morocco, and Rivka established this midrash on a real story, on a paper that she found in some halachic magazine that tells the story and analyzes it. So she took the story and turned it into a midrash with her agenda, a beautiful midrash. So first we will read together from the Bible the mitzvah of leverate, and then we will see the story of the great Jamila. Jamila, the objector. You can imagine already what's going to happen there. By Rivka Lubitch. So first the verses that describes what is this mitzvah. When brethren dwell together and one of them dies and leaves no son, the wife of the deceased shall not be married to a stranger outside the family. Her husband's brother shall unite with her. He shall take her as his wife and perform the levir's duty. The first son that she bears shall be accounted to the dead brother, that his name may not be blotted out in Israel. But if the man doesn't want to marry his brother's widow shall appear before the elders in the gate and declare, my husband's brother refused to establish a name in Israel for his brother. He will not perform the duty of the lever. So we're talking here about patrilineal order, the patriarchal order in the Bible. When a man dies with no offsprings, his name may be lost of the world. So his wife with one of his brothers has to bring another child that will be considered after him as if he's his child and will carry his name forward. Unfortunately, there isn't a parallel mitzvah that will keep a woman's name in the world. And the woman here should be having sex with a guy that she may have history with, her brother-in-law. We don't know what the relations are going to be. So troubles may pop up. And this is the story of Jamila that we will read soon. We will skip the part in the Bible, in Deuteronomy, that describe the chalitza ceremony, in case this brother really doesn't want to make the mitzvah with the woman, and he releases her to marry to someone else out of the family. So now let's meet Jamila, and again, it's a real story. In Morocco, there was once a great woman named Jamila who rebelled against levirate marriage. A true story. Jamila and her husband David lived in peace and tranquility 47 years, and they had no children. When David died, Yamin, his older brother, arose and wished to perform levirate marriage with the wife of the deceased. The rabbinical court told Jamila to enter into levirate marriage with Yamin and uphold the name of the deceased. She told them, I do not want to. I want to perform chalitza and be done with it. They told her, it is accepted by us in this Beit, in this court, that levirate marriage takes precedence over the chalitza ceremony. She said, I shared my bed with David for many years. I do not want to share it with his brother Yamin. The judges said to her, your will is null and void relative to the commandment of levirate marriage. She said to them, what do you want with me? I'm 60 years old and not fit to give birth. Let's stop and explain. So the story is that David, after 47 years, died, and his brother Yamin wants to make the levirate marriage with Jamila. Only Jamila, who probably knows him very well for many years, refuses and wants to do chalitza, the ceremony that will release her from the ties to this family. And usually this ceremony is done because the brother doesn't want to make the levirate marriage, but this one, it's her. So the Beit Din tells her, in our Beit Din, there is a tradition, there is masoret. We think that yibum, the levirate marriage, should be done always, unless there is something really so difficult that chalitza is done. But the levirate is always precedent, and we do chalitza very, very, very seldom. So no, this is unacceptable. You have to marry Yamin. So she tells them, but I don't want to. And they tell her, your will is irrelevant to the issue. There is a command to do, there's a mitzvah to do. It's very painful to hear this so straight. But if you don't want to sleep with someone, it doesn't matter. For us, the mitzvah should be done. So she tells them, guys, I'm 60 years old. I didn't manage to have the children until now. There's not going to be a baby coming out of this marriage. So let's, let me get away with this, from this. They said, how many old and barren women were visited at this age and fit to uphold a name? What's more, they said, the command is obligatory even on those who aren't fit for it. So first they tell her, who knows, maybe there'll be a miracle, it happened in the past, and you may conceive. And then they say, and even if you can't conceive, it doesn't matter. Halachically, you have to marry this guy. Okay, the judges saw she was steadfast in her refusal, and they rebuked her time and again to make her fulfill the commandment, until she said, I will fulfill the commandment, but with Yaakov, the youngest of the brothers. The judges wondered, what is the difference between Yaakov and Yamin? She said, this is my will, and the will has no reason. The judges returned to Yamin, the eldest, and said, we will let him decide. Yamin said, let the law pierce the mountain and I will uphold the name of my dead brother David. In his heart, Yamin said, if I do levirate marriage with her, I will inherit my brother David's estate. So the judges put pressure on her, and she says, okay, you know what? I will fulfill the mitzvah, but with Yaakov, whom she probably feels less disgusted or she has less bad history with, I don't know what. But Yamin, the elder brother, the rabbis let him decide, and he that wants the estate, wants the money that belongs to David, the brother that died, refuses. Jamila stood her ground and declared, I will not enter into levirate marriage with Yamin. They said to her, my daughter. Another version has it, you fool. You will be left without support from the estate and without no dowry, only whatever cash you have on hand. She said to them, I know, but I cannot have relations with someone I loathe. So she keeps insisting, and they tell her, you'll pay for it. You will lose your property. She says, I know, but you can't force me to have sexual relations with someone that I loathe, which is an expression that the Rambam uses, that you can't force a woman to sleep with someone that she loathes, and therefore this is ila legerushim. This is when someone wants to divorce. This is a claim, a valid claim for divorce. So here she uses it, I just can't do this. In the end, Jamila was steadfast in her refusal and lived the rest of her days with neither son nor daughter, without support from the estate and with no dowry, aside from whatever cash she had on hand. And this goes to teach how great is the strength of a woman who refuses to have relations with someone she loathes. So the first ending of the story is that she paid for it, but it's worth to her to pay for it. And there is strength in women to refuse to suffer. It's a different kind of suffer to be poor now. And we know that in our days, the to'anot rabbaniyot, like Rivka, the women that represent the clients, the women clients in rabbinical court, fight for them and wouldn't agree to give the apartment for the husband in order to receive a get. Sometimes it works, others it doesn't. But here we see that she had the strength at least to refuse to have sex with someone she doesn't like. But it doesn't end only with this. In the Beit Midrash of women, this imaginary Bruria's Beit Midrash that Rivka uses in her Midrashim, they said, Jamila was a great woman. Not only did she uphold her own dignity, but the dignity of all daughters of Israel who refused to have relations with people they loathe. So first of all, she taught us, she gave us the strength to say no. Moreover, they said, not only did she uphold the dignity of daughters of Israel who refused to have relations with people they loathe, but also the dignity of the Torah. That she shows that the Torah has this room that enables us to not to suffer and not to go so low, to bring humanity to such low places. And people said, Jamila the Great, she had no children, but she made herself a very great name. So here there is a hipuch. It's the whole levirate marriage aims to keep a name for the husband, the deceased, the husband that died, because a man's name should be kept another generation. And here nobody cared about women's name, but by behaving the way she did, she made herself name. In the end of the story, she will die, he died, but her name will last, because she had the courage to fight for herself, for the daughters of Israel, and for the Torah. So this is there is no beginning of a child here, but there is a beginning of new way of dealing for women, dealing in court and insisting on. Here she paid a very high price. Women and their advocates are doing their calculations, but there is a possibility in the Torah to care for yourself. The next Midrash has to do with real births, and it's named The Midwives Saw in Fear. It's a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful Midrash written by Orna Pilz, and is on the verses from Exodus that describe the midwife's behavior. I'll just remind those that don't remember the beginning of Exodus that there's a new Pharaoh that is afraid of the Israelites that they are spreading and growing up so fast that he's afraid that one day if there will be a war, they will join the bad guys. So he gives them bad laws that the last one, the worst of them, is that every son that is born to the Israelites should be thrown to the Nile. He, the king of Egypt, said to the midwives, when you deliver the Hebrew women, look, ureiten, at the birth stool. If it's a boy, kill him, and if it's a girl, let her live. The midwives feared God in awe, vatirena, and didn't do as the king of Egypt told them. They let the boys live. So many people noticed, and Ona too, that there are two words that are very similar here. And these two verbs appear also in other stories in the Bible and have very interesting meanings. To see, ureiten, to see on the birth stools if it's a boy or a girl, and also liro, to have awe, vatirena. Yir'ah, awe, and re'iyah are the same letters, and in different stories in the Bible, again, there is a game between both of them. For instance, in Akedat Yitzchak, it appears, and in another occasion that we will see soon. So now Orna Pilz's Midrash begins. The midwives were asked, where did you get your fearful awe of God? And they answered, from the great and deep things that we saw at the birth stool, from the mystery that embraces us morning and evening, human being after human being coming into the world. Where does it come from, and what does she bring with her? The goodness that her mother sees in him, the compassion and the love that she awakens, crying babies bursting forth from exhausted bodies, and the soft seal of God's finger imprinted on their faces. So the midwives explain to us that their awe of God, their yir'ah, is coming from the re'iyah of what they see on the birth stool, the raz, the miracle, the mystery of birth. What is it that these babies, where do they come from, and what is this imprint of God on their faces? From such pain, such happiness comes, that enable them to see God's greatness. But women's experiences are also always suspicious, and they're being challenged. The midwives were challenged. But didn't it happen at Sinai that all the people saw Ro'im, the thunder and the lightning and the voice of the shofar and the smoking mountain, and the people saw it and trembled and stood far off. And Moses said to the people, do not fear, for God has come to test you, to keep the fearful awe of God before you, so that you will not transgress. So the folks that challenged Meyeldot, the midwives, tell them, hey, we know a different story or moment in the Bible where there is a connection between seeing something and receiving or feeling the awe of God. And this is the Mount Sinai. There, that was a real important experience, a transcendent experience, that God that is beyond our order let us feel something of himself. And we panicked. When you see and hear God's tiny he reveals himself even just a little to us, we already we feel so much yir'ah, and Moshe has to be the mediator between us. So Yirat Elohim, awe of God, one supposed to get from something serious, from something transcendent, not from this everyday experience that you see, the blood on the birth stool. The fearful, and I'm reading the Midrash, the fearful awe of God comes from the place of thunder and lightning. And the midwives answered, there is fearful awe, yir'ah, that comes from external seeing, re'iyah, and there is a fearful awe that comes from internal vision. A person can be frozen in terror witnessing a supernatural miracle, which awakens and strengthens her sense of fearful awe. So they begin and say, okay, there are two ways of experience the awe of God. One is what you say, the experiencing the supernatural miracle. It's true. But for us, it doesn't work like that. Our fearful awe is not in the heavens. Our fearful awe of God arises precisely from within nature, from within the pain of what we witness on the birth stool. From there we learn to choose what is good, to protect life, to fight against death, and to resist evil. So the birth women are insisting on their spirituality, on their theology, that you can find God on the birth stool, on the everyday's life that has to do with pain and overcoming pain. And they chose to help keeping those lives because they had this religious experience that you learn how precious this blood and pain are. So this Midrash really sounds like I forgot to say, they use beautifully the verse from Deuteronomy that our awe is not in the heavens. That's the famous Talmudic story that the rabbis say to Rabbi Eliezer. The way we rule is not through God's words, but through our brains, if you remember that story. So here too, she says, we don't need the supernatural experiences. We have the natural experiences that are holy and are religious, and God revealed himself through them, not less. And they can create this awe in you to care for life and to behave good. So this Midrash really, I think, is more of the second generation of feminism. The first generation of feminism insisted that men and women should get the same rights. Women should vote. They should go to college. They can get the jobs that they want. The second generation said, we're not the same like men. We have different bodies, different existential experiences, And we want you to appreciate our way of judging things, of experience things, and give them the same importance and value to the way that men do give their experiences. They were different. We have different psychology. We judge morally differently. So that's the second generation that says transcendence is not more important than immanence. We can see God in different ways than you do. I know that many women that I taught love that midrash, and actually many men too, that it enables other ways of touching God in reality. So that was the new beginning of new life. And the last midrash that we will read today is a midrash that I'm sharing with you that I wrote, and also has to do with giving birth and troubles with giving birth. The name of this midrash is Miscarriage and Creation. We know that miscarriages are an awful experience to women, especially when they happen again and again, one after the other, and women lose the confidence that they will ever be able to have a child, and they need a lot of strength to try again. And there is no room in society for the mourning after losing a child. Even I think it's in the Mishnah that says that you don't have to mourn after the fetus. The fetus is just like this and that. It gives different images that really are heartbreaking for women to read. So this midrash that I wrote is trying to give room to the pain over miscarriage, but also to the process that one has to go in order to try again. And I used as a motto to the midrash a tiny traditional midrash that I found in Kohelet Rabbah. So first, the midrash is on the pasuk, the first pasuk in Genesis. At the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was tohu vavohu, darkness over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God hovering over the face of the waters. So I left tohu vavohu in Hebrew because I'm going to give it a certain meaning in the midrash, and it will talk about God's giving birth of our world. And I used, or the idea came to me from this tiny midrash in Kohelet Rabbah. It's on the verse, He brings everything to pass precisely in its time. We all remember the chapter in Kohelet, Ecclesiastes 3. It's this poem, time to this, time to that in our world we experience things and they're the opposite. And there is time for each, and we have to think when to behave like this, when to behave like that. And the last verse after this song is that it ends and summarizes that God brings everything to pass precisely in its time. So the Midrash says, Rabbi Abahu said that we learn from here that the Holy Blessed One was building worlds and destroying them, creating worlds and destroying them until he created this world. בורא עולמות ומחריבן, בונה עולמות ומחריבן, עד שברא את אלה. So Rabbi Abahu teaches us that there were other worlds before our world, but they didn't fit, they didn't work, they weren't precisely on time and what God wanted, and our world is the best of all worlds if we use... So when I read this midrash, traditional midrash on Kohelet, I realized that maybe God herself, if we will talk about God in the feminine, God is not either female or or male, but we ascribe to God the different experiences that we go through. So if we ascribe to God giving birth to this world as the creation, as giving birth, maybe she had given birth or had miscarriages before, but only this world of ours managed to exist and be the one that God wanted, the healthy and wishful one. So I wrote this Midrash that we're going to read now about these experiences of God before our world and afterwards. And God saw her worlds falling at her feet. And she said to herself, I will just let my heart fall along with them, and I will sit in darkness like those long dead. From Lamentation. So God had those miscarriages, the worlds that she created before, falling, not living, and she was so depressed that she said of herself, I'll just mourn forever, I can't deal with this, I'll be like one of them. Her tears and blood were scattering in space, searching for land that would absorb them. And they wept to fragrance and pieces until all of existence was the cloud and fog of the great deep. God tried to look again at the ruins of her world and just couldn't. She covered herself with this great deep, as is written, you made the deep, covered it as a garment. And she beat her chest and wailed, for I shall be a desolation forever. So God is, first of all, she keeps bleeding as if after the miscarriage, and she cries and cries and cries, and the whole universe is filled with this, with these tears, and there is no land to absorb them because earth is not there, so she can't be comforted. And this is maybe all the waters that we saw in the verse before, that the world was with the water, and her soul, not her soul, but she was hovering over this water, that all the world was hovered, and there was the tehom, the deep, that is, maybe she's covering herself with these tears. It's this image of mourning and pain and despair. What did she think at that moment when she couldn't longer bear to look on those worlds? She remembered that it said of her, you brought forth the earth and the world in Psalms, and her womb eternal, Jeremiah. And she felt her sons and daughters straining to be born, so that they could say in gratitude, for I was not killed in the womb. So on the one hand, she's in total despair and crying and can't even see the children that fell anymore. On the other hand, voices in her, she hears the voices. We say in our tradition that the Midrash says that the Torah was written before the world was created. So here she hears the voices already from the Bible that talks about her, that her womb is eternal, which means it can provide again. And she hears the voices of her children wanting to be born, their souls that want to be born and to pray, to say in gratitude, thank you for not dying in the womb. She closed her eyes, swallowed the pain lodged in her throat, and pleaded for herself that she might find more loving mercy and faith. As is written, I declare, a world of loving mercy will be built. Your faithfulness will be established in the heavens. And she, as if praying for herself to find the last bits of strength in her that will enable her to as if conceive again, or to give birth again, or to create a new world again. So this pasuk in Psalms have these two things that I believe one needs in order to live in this world: the loving kindness and the faith. These two, I don't know how to call them, powers, can make us survive our world, to believe in people, to believe maybe in a God that cares, and the loving kindness to other people, and to believe that they can give it to us too. Because without these two, I believe that it doesn't work, or it's even impossible. So she managed to find these two strengths in her that enable her to try once again. And from that, she went and created new heavens and a new earth. When the heavens and earth stood in wonderment and bewilderment, tohim uvohim, tohu vavohu. This is how I understand tohu vavohu. These heavens and earth staring, they don't understand. You know, it's the eyes of a baby when they just arrived to the world. She took off the garment of the deep with which she had been covering herself, and that deep of cloud and fog, made of her blood and tears, went and gathered into living waters, and she hovered over them back and forth, as is written, when the earth was tohu vavohu, darkness over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God hovering over the face of the waters. And what was she saying at that moment of the new beginning? That it should not totter and fall forever. And her sons and daughters joined their prayers to hers, and they themselves said that it should not totter and fall forever, that it should not totter and fall forever. So there is this moment that God asks prayers to herself, prayers to find the kochot, the strength, the hope, that this time she won't have a miscarriage and the world will be able to exist. And we share this prayer with her. We're praying together and strengthening each other. And it's up to us, by our prayer, by our behavior, to see that this world continue to exist and have maybe this faith and loving kindness that make this world worth existing. So I want to thank you all for being with me in these 4 sessions, learning Midrashim from Dirshuni and learning Midrashim that will appear in the next Dirshuni that I received after October 7th, that were written during the last year by different women. And I hope that this Torah written by women will add to our collective Jewish intuitions, impulses, morals, inner powers, theology, strength, and hope, and beauty. Imir Hashem. Thank you.